Oh, righty. Oh, it's not ESPN. It's 30 for 30. However, it is my New York Giants 98 for 98. Sorry, I got my dog in here. Once I get talking, sometimes he just wants to come on in and share the love. He wants to hear about the New York Giants 1966 season. So it is my 98 for 98 for New York Giants. 98 seasons in 98 days. Probably not going to get it done in 98 days, but I'm trying to get it done before the beginning of the regular season, which starts September 10th against the Cowboys. So I'm going to try to get it done by then. We're halfway into the 60s. We're at season number 42. The 1966 New York Giants would just happen to be the absolute worst team in New York Giants history. 1-12-1. They started the season off 0-1, so they were on a roll, baby. But they finished the season, the last 13 games, they were 1-12. Yeah, kind of. What would you say? Comparable to the 73 team, which started off 1-0-1, right? And then they finished the season 1-11. So, the 73 team that. First game of the season, they beat the Houston Oilers 34-14, Yankee Stadium. The next week, I think it was 23-23. They tied it up. Pete Gogolak was running onto the field as the clock was expiring. They snapped the ball. They put the ball down. Pete Gogolak kicked like a 16-yard field goal or whatever, real short field goal. They tied up as time expires. So as he's running off the field, the Giants are running off the field. They're 1-0-1. Things ain't looking too bad. And unfortunately, they went 1-11 after that for the rest of the season. So it's kind of very comparable. But there's just so many things that makes this season just so horrible. The biggest one that comes to mind is the NFL record. A couple NFL records they set. One was that they gave up 72 points to the Washington Redskins, which is the regular season record. The all-time record is a 1940 championship game. The Chicago Bears scored 73 points against the very same Washington Redskins. The 1940 NFL championship game was 73-0. This one was 72-40. The Giants lost in Washington. They lost 72-41. So the 72-41, the 113 combined points is an NFL record. Period. Regular season, postseason. The 72 points that the Giants defense gave up was, an NFL record for regular season. It was, and it just goes to show you, that there's something that wouldn't, there's a lot of things as time's gone on, things have changed and all. And this is not something you wouldn't see nowadays. But, as legend has it, and even Sam Huff even said he did it because he was traded from the Giants and he didn't like that at all. He wanted to stay a Giant, retire a Giant, be a Giant. He was a Giant and they traded him away and he was not happy about that. So, you're going to hear him on like certain videos and all of that and everything. And, it was 69. It was 69-41, and the Redskins had the ball, and they were just, I don't know, they were just maybe just trying to run the clock out or whatever. But they were marching down in the Giants' territory. So as legend has it, and as even Sam Huff said that he did, it got to be like whatever, 10 seconds to go in the game, somewhere around there. Let me see here. I can figure this out where the Redskins got down to. Let's see, 72-41. There we go. Let's see what the final field goal was. We subtract 7 yards from it. And so the final, okay, they got down to the 22-yard line because the goalposts were on the goal line. So it was a 29-yard field goal. So you subtract the 7 yards that it was because Pete and Charlie Gogolak, brothers, were in the game kicking against each other. So Pete, our Pete Gogolak is the Giants kicker. He's going up against Charlie Gogolak, the Redskins kicker. Well, Charlie Gogolak kicked it from the 29-yard line. So the Redskins were moving, and it was at the end of the game and whatever. Apparently, got like about 10 seconds or so to go in the game. And Sam Huff called timeout. And he ushered, he's not on the offense. So he told it somehow. I don't know how you get away with something like this. I don't know. I think Otto Graham is the coach. Otto Graham, the coach? Yeah, Otto Graham was the coach of the Redskins. I don't know how he would allow something like this to happen. But after Samoff called timeout, I guess he told the field goal kicking unit to go on the field to kick a field goal so they can get 70 points. So Charlie Gogolak kicked a 29-yard field goal, and it made it 72-41. I guess that was the last play of the game, whatever. But I mean, that's something like that would not happen nowadays. I mean, the only way something like that would happen nowadays would be if there was like some bitter rivalry, bitter feud going on. You know what I mean? So like Sirianni or the moron coach from the Eagles. If he made fun of somebody else or really rubbed something in their face or something, or ran the score up on a team or something, they really wanted to get back at him or something, And I could see maybe something like that happen, but that wasn't the case here. And for the most part, this would never happen. The clock would just run out, and you're not running a field goal unit on to kick 3 points, just to get 70 something points. But I mean, it was just absolutely unbelievably horrible. I said the Giants. Somehow the Redskins only had 341 yards of offense. And they only had 16 first downs, but they managed to score 72 points on 16 first downs. 341 yards of offense. The Giants actually outgained them. 389 to 341. And somehow the Giants gave up 72 points. Oh, my goodness. But, I mean, it was just absolutely. I don't even know how Ali Sherman made it out of this season, because 2 seasons before this, Ali Sherman, the New York Giants, they wound up 2-10-2. So I don't know, honestly, how you could wind up, 2-10-2. And then in 1965, the Giants rebounded. They went from 2-10-2 to 7-7, which is a very impressive rebound. Very impressive rebound. So, I mean, you thought maybe things were going to start turning around a little bit. The Giants were 7-7. But nope. I mean, they plummeted to 1-12-1. This is the absolute worst season in the Giants' history. Total embarrassment. I don't know how Ali Sherman actually kept his job after the season was over. Absolute total embarrassment. Now, the Giants, I mean, actually, they started off in the preseason. They only played 5 preseason games. I thought that back then they were played 6, but they actually won their first 3 preseason games. They beat the Steelers 16-14. Then they beat the Atlanta Falcons, who were an expansion team in 1966. More on them in a little bit. The Giants beat the Falcons 14-7. Then they beat the Detroit Lions 17-7. So, I mean, 3 games. Their defense gave up 28 points in the preseason. It's preseason, I guess. But they're 3-0. Then they lost their next game against the Eagles in preseason 24-23. A good, tough game. And they lost. They lost by a point. So nothing, But then the final preseason game, they lost to the Packers at County Stadium in Milwaukee, 37-10. That was obviously, the Packers then, coached by Vince Lombardi. So the onslaught was on. The Giants, their first game of the season was against the Pittsburgh Steelers. I'll go over a little more of this as we go along. But I mean, just unbelievably horrible. I mean, let's see here. I'll go over the games in a little bit. But the Giants, let's see here. What did they do? They threw 20 touchdown passes. They threw 31 interceptions. They gave up 36 touchdown passes, and they got 17. The one bright spot was that Earl Morrall completed a pass to Homer Jones for a 98-yard touchdown, which was broken by, of course, Victor Cruz in 2011. The Giants, the rush, averaged 3.8 yards a carry, which wasn't, it's not super spectacular, but it wasn't super duper horrible. Their run defense gave up 4.3 yards a carry. But their run defense, they gave up 23 touchdowns on the run defense. They only scored 7 rushing touchdowns all season. So, yeah, it was just a real embarrassment. Let's see here. The Giants gave up 66 touchdowns in 14 games. The 501 points they gave up was 35.8 points per game. The only team in NFL history to give up 500 points in a 14-game schedule. They averaged giving up almost 36 points a game. They only averaged 18.8 points a game. So basically, they scored half as what they gave up. Let's see here. They said, they gave up 66 touchdowns, and the other team scored 13 field goals on them. Just absolutely horrible. The Giants quarterbacks got sacked 62 times in 14 games. That would be at a 17-game schedule. That would be like about 75 sacks in the 17-game schedules, maybe even more. 75, 76 sacks, somewhere around there. Giants defense only got 26 sacks. And I'm going to go over this too. This once again, a very, very poor job of drafting by the Giants. I think their second-round pick only played like one. We'll go over their picks, but quite possibly, it just goes to show you how bad they were at drafting. Their best pick was an undrafted free agent. We'll go over that in a little bit. But let's get this crack-a-lack in here. The 1966 NFL season. It was a huge season because the Atlanta Falcons were an expansion team in the NFL. The Miami Dolphins were an expansion team in the AFL. It was the first year of the Super Bowl. The thing that really just a straight up two-fisted one gut punch would just suck half the air out of you, and the other gut punch would just boom, take the rest of the air out of you, leave you bending over, knock the wind right out of you, take you about 3 hours to get your breath and come back up, and then somebody just slaps you in the face. The total gut punch slap in the face of this all is that the two teams that went to the NFL championship game to see who went to the Super Bowl. The next two seasons, the 66 and 67 season, were the Dallas Cowboys and the Green Bay Packers. Dallas Cowboys coached by Tom Landry, who was the defensive coordinator for the Giants in the 50s. And he left after the 59 season to go coach the Cowboys in 1960. I'm sure if the Giants really wanted him bad enough to stay, I'm sure he would have stayed. The other team is the Green Bay Packers, who was coached by Vince Lombardi, who was the Giants' offensive coordinator. After the 58 season, he left to go coach the Packers in 59 now. And I even read that after the 57 season, what I read was that the Philadelphia Eagles offered him a job as a head coach, and he turned it down to come back to the Giants to be their offensive coordinator. So he even turned down the Eagles' head coaching job. So I'm sure if the Giants really, really wanted him to be a coach, I'm sure they could have held on to him one way or the other or something and made him, keep him as to be their coach. But once they let him go. So the two teams in 66 and 67 who go into the championship games and whoever went to the Super Bowl and all that are being coached by two guys that the Giants had on the coaching staff in the 50s. Let them go, and then we have Ali Sherman, who was on the coaching staff, and he's coaching the Giants to a 112-1 record. Just unbelievable. Absolute garbage. And I'll show you that their draft was just pretty much absolute garbage. And that was the biggest problem, is that they were trading away a lot of their picks to get players in because they couldn't draft. A lot of their draft picks were just horrible. The guys were, retiring. They were trading guys away and this all, and they just couldn't draft to restock the shelves. They had 20 rounds, right? And they couldn't get enough guys. They couldn't get much more, like one or two guys, maybe three guys at the most in a draft. And a lot of the guys that they picked up in the draft that maybe made the team were really, they weren't all that good. It wasn't like the first, second, and third round picks were really, really, they banged it out of the park and they made the team now. So, but the 1966 NFL season was the 47th regular season in the history of the National Football League. The 47th for the NFL, the 42nd for the New York Giants. The Giants started in 1925. The NFL started in 1920. So the Giants are 5 years younger than the NFL is. And it was the first season in which the Super Bowl was played, though it was called, at the time, it was called the AFL-NFL World Championship game. The league expanded to 15 teams with the addition of the Atlanta Falcons, making a bye necessary for each week for one team. The way it was in the 1960 season, each team had a bye week. When the Dallas Cowboys came in 1960, and the league went from 12 teams to 13 teams. This was the last season that the NFL was divided only into two separate conferences. In 1967, it went to four conferences. They had like the Capital Division and the Century Division, I think it was. We'll see that when we get to the 67. But they had, it wasn't like the NFC North, the NFC South, or the NFC East. It wasn't like that. And there was only and this was the last season, and only one postseason round was played. Starting in 1967, there was two rounds were played. There was the divisional round and then the championship game. 1967, the Packers beat the Rams and the Cowboys beat the Browns. So that in the championship game was the Packers and the Cowboys played in the champion, which just happened to be the Ice Bowl. Packers won 21-17. Bart Starr sneaks over with under 13 seconds to go in the game or so, whatever. The Packers win, go and play the Oakland Raiders in the Super Bowl II, and they win. They wound up winning that one 33-14. But this season concluded with the AFL-NFL World Championship game. The NFL champion Green Bay Packers defeated the AFL champion Kansas City Chiefs 35-10 at the Los Angeles Memorial Coliseum, which wasn't even sold out. On January 15, 1967, the Interleague Championship game would eventually be named the Super Bowl, and the 1966 season is now considered the first of the Super Bowl era. Absolutely. Let's see. Pat Studstill for the Lions can set a record for consecutive games with more than 125 receiving yards with 5. Interesting. A record which was not tied until Calvin Megatron Johnson several decades later. He also became the third ever player to complete a 99-yard pass play. The highest scoring game in the NFL history also took place during the season, with the then Washington Redskins beating the New York Giants in Week 12 showdown with a final score of 72-41. The Redskins was also they were the only team that the Giants beat that year. The Giants beat them 13-10. So I guess the Redskins really wanted some revenge on them, I guess. The AFL-NFL merger. As the competitive war between the NFL and the American Football League reached its peak, the two leagues agreed on June 8th, 1966 to merge. Under the agreement, the two leagues would combine to form an expanded league with 24 teams, which would be increased to 26 teams by 1969 and to 28 teams by 1970 or soon thereafter. All existing teams would be retained, and none of them would be moved outside of their metropolitan areas. While maintaining separate schedules through 1969, the leagues agreed to play an annual AFL-NFL World Championship game beginning in January 1967. Let's see. The two leagues would officially merge in 1970 to form one league with two conferences named the American Football Conference and the National Football Conference. Got expansion here. The Atlanta was awarded to the NFL. The Atlanta Falcons was awarded to the NFL, and the Miami Dolphins went to the AFL. It says there was an expansion draft. The 1966 NFL expansion draft was held on February 15, 1966, with Falcons selecting 42 players from the other NFL teams. The 1966 NFL draft was held on November 27, 1965, in New York City's Summit Hotel. With the first pick, the Atlanta Falcons selected linebacker Tommy Novus from the University of Texas. A very good pick. Very, very, not in the Hall of Fame, but a very, very solid middle linebacker. Definitely, without question. Great pick. Major rule changes. And I brought this up in my video that I did from the 1965 season. It's a very controversial call. Very, very controversial. The major rule change, the goalposts were standardized in the NFL. They were to be 3 to 4 inches in diameter, painted bright yellow with 2 non-curved supports offset from the goal line, and uprights 20 feet above the crossbar. Excuse me. The new slingshot goalpost was made standard with 1 curved support from the ground. In 1974, the goalposts were returned to the end line, and the uprights were extended to 30 feet above the crossbar, and then to 35 feet in 2014. Because as the kickers just keep booming them farther and farther the goalposts, they got to go up higher and higher. The new goalpost rule is often referred to as the Don Chandler rule, referring to the place kicker from the Green Bay Packers, who was a New York Giant. The Giants traded Don Chandler to the Packers. Although widely denied, the height increase of the uprights was in reaction to the previous season's Western Conference playoff game at Lambeau Field in Green Bay between the Packers and the Colts. 2 minutes to go in the game. Colts are up 10-7. Don Chandler kicks the ball. And if you look, it really looks. He missed it. It kind of curved, and it doesn't ever look like it goes over the crossbar, the upright, I'm sorry, or inside of it at all. It looks like it kind of goes very close to it, but then it curves away from it. Well, the referee, I think it was Jerry Tunney, I'll get to his name in a second. Jim Tunney, my bad. Signal it was good. But if you look at it in the video, it doesn't look like it's good. And the Baltimore Colts were in an uproar about it. And it had and wind up tying the game, sending the game into overtime, and the Colts wind up losing in overtime. Don Chandler kicked the field goal in overtime. So really, really, to all intents and purposes, it looked like he missed that field goal. So the Colts quite possibly won that game. If the uprights were like 5 feet so taller, that it would have hit the uprights and probably wouldn't have gone through. And therefore, then the Colts would have gone to the NFL championship game in 1965. They would have hosted the championship game against the Browns, and quite possibly they might have won. But that's neither here or there. But Chandler kicked a controversial field goal that tied the game with under 2 minutes remaining. The kick was high above the upright, and many spectators thought that the kick missed. However, the kick was ruled good by field judge Jim Tunney. Chandler later hit a field goal in overtime to defeat the Colts. The following week, the Packers defeated the Browns in the NFL championship game, which wound up being their first of 3 consecutive championships. They three-peated. They weren't the first to three-peat. Actually, the Packers three-peated in 1929, 1930, and 31. So the Packers were the first to three-peat. Another rule change born from the 1965 Western Conference playoff was 2 officials, the back judge and the field judge, were stationed under each upright for field goal and extra point attempts. So the uprights were extended. I think the bars were bigger. They were painted bright yellow. They were extended up higher, and there was an official under each upright to see exactly if it was any good or not. But that was one of the problems. The ball was kicked and it went above the upright, but it sure looked like he missed it. Then there was conference races. The Packers wound up winning with a record of 12-2. The The Baltimore Colts were 9-5. So the Packers won by 3 games. It was pretty much that the Dallas Cowboys were 10-3-1. The Philadelphia Eagles and the Cleveland Browns were in second place at 9-5. So, actually, and the St. Louis Cardinals were 8-5-1. So I mean, the Cowboys won by like a game and a half. The Packers won by 3 games. So it really wasn't a ton of a lot of suspense going on toward the end there. So the championship game wound up being a very good one. The Packers defeated the Dallas Cowboys in the Cotton Bowl 34-27. That's the NFL championship. The AFL championship, the Kansas City Chiefs beat Buffalo 31-7. So that set up the first Super Bowl, which we'll go over in a little bit. So you got the Green Bay Packers playing the Kansas City Chiefs in the first Super Bowl. Then there was a playoff bowl between the conference runners-up for who wound up third place overall. And the Baltimore was in second place in the Western Conference, and the Philadelphia Eagles were in second place in the Eastern Conference. They played each other for a playoff bowl. Baltimore beat the Eagles 20-14 at the Orange Bowl on January 8th, 1967. So the Colts were in third place. Whoopie-doo. Most valuable player went to Bart Starr of the Green Bay Packers, and the coach of the year was Tom Landry of the Dallas Cowboys as well. He should have, because he got their team to 10-3-1. They scored 445 points. I mean, they scored more points by far than anybody. The second closest team was the Cleveland Browns, who scored 403 points. I mean, the Cowboys were a very good team. Very, very good team. The Packers were a very good team, too, that year. They were 12-2. They scored 335 points. However, they only gave up 163. So in 14 games, they gave up, like 11.5 points a game. So their defense was very, very good. So that set that up. Let's go to the draft, the NFL draft, and I'll show you how the Giants their first round pick, round 1. They took Francis P, who I think he was an offensive tackle from Missouri. I think he played 1 season or 2 seasons with the Giants. What was it? 2. He played 2 seasons with the Giants. He played until 1974, but he only played 1966 and 1967 with the Giants. So their first pick, he only played 2 seasons for the Giants. So 2 and done. So, I mean, not that he was a horrible player. He just never played for the Giants. Round 2. I mean, it just trash picks. Don Davis, a tackle. Round 2. Round 3. Tom Fisher. I don't even think he even played in the NFL. Round 4. Giants didn't have a pick. Yeah, didn't have a pick in round 4. Round 5. Bill Briggs, a defensive end from Iowa. I mean, if he played, he certainly did not help the Giants out much at all. I can tell you that much. Round 6. Giants didn't have a pick. Round 7, Giants took Phil Harris, a running back from Texas. I don't even think he even played in the NFL. Round 8, the Giants took Bill Matan, a wide receiver of Kansas State. I don't even think he played in the NFL. Round 9, they took Freeman White, a wide receiver from Nebraska. I have no idea. Freeman White. My God, he played 4 years for the Giants? Yeah. I have no idea. I mean, if he did, I'll tell you what, he certainly did not set the world on fire. I can guarantee you that. So round 10, the Giants took Jeff Smith, a linebacker from USC. He didn't play in the NFL. Let's see, what their one pick. Let's see here. Where was it? There was 20 rounds altogether. Let's see, round 17 maybe. Nope. Round 18. Nope. Was it round 20 then? No, I guess not. Yeah, so I mean, basically, I mean, their first round pick played 2 seasons for him. They had a wide receiver that played 4 years for him, who basically probably didn't have any production at all. However, their best draft pick, was an undrafted player. Good old Willie Young, number 69. He was an offensive tackle from Grambling State, played from 1966 to 1975 for the Giants. He started for the Giants that year. I mean, he was never a super duper unbelievable player, but He was there for 10 years, 10 solid years, and I don't think he really missed any time. Very good pick, but he was an undrafted player. The Giants just could not draft anybody. The drafts were just absolutely horrible. So let's go over there. What's up today? Nobody did any better versus the West. 8 worst teams in the East, not even New York fault. Let's see. Let's say the East was so bad the entire East would not win for 5 years. Well, we got let's go over to their games. And as always, the Giants, except for I think it was 1961, I think it was. They started all their games were always on the road in the beginning. For the most part, from 1925 on, anywhere from their first 2 to their first 4 games were on the road. Well, here in 1966, their first 3 games were on the road. The first game was on the road on September 11th. They played Pittsburgh, and they tied them 34-34. So Giants are off 0-1, and it's all downhill after that. Second game of the season, they played Dallas at the Cotton Bowl on Sunday, September 18th. They lost 52-7. They gave up 518 yards of offense. Week 3, Sunday, September 25th, they played in Philadelphia at Franklin Field. They lost to the Eagles 35-17. Now they come home. Their first home game is Sunday, October 2nd against the Cleveland Browns. They lost 28-7. So now they're 0-3-1. Sunday, October 9th, for their 5th game, they lost to the St. Louis Cardinals. It was a close one, 24-19, but once again, they still lost. Now they're 0-4-1. The following week, they get their first and only victory of the whole season. On Sunday, October 16th, at home at Yankee Stadium, they beat the Washington Redskins 13-10. So now the Giants are 1-4-1. Then after that, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, their next 8 games they lose, and they give up. They gave up 47 points or more 5 times during the regular season. So the following week, Sunday, October 23rd, the Philadelphia Eagles come to town. The Philadelphia Eagles win 31-3. So now the Giants are 1-5-1. The following week, Sunday, November 6th, St. Louis Cardinals come to town. And the Giants at home, the Giants play them tough, but the Giants lost. It was a close one, 20-17. But then the onslaught begins. They go out to play the Rams Sunday, November 13th. And somehow this is the game of the week. If you ever look on YouTube and you look at 1966 and you type in like maybe the game of the week or something like that with between. So somehow this I don't know why, how, who, what moron made this the game of the week. Usually a game of the week, I'm thinking should be a good close contest. Not this one. This was the farthest thing humanly possible. This game was such absolute trash. I couldn't possibly imagine what moron thought this up to be the game of the week. The Giants went out to Los Angeles and they lost 55-14. The Rams had 38 first downs. They had 572 yards of offense. The Giants had 103 yards of offense. The Rams got 469 more yards than the Giants did. The Giants had, 15 first downs. The Rams had 38 first downs. 38. That's hard to do. 55-14. Then it came the next embarrassment. At this point in time, the Atlanta Falcons were either, what were they? Let's see. They were either 0-9, 0-8. What were they? 0-10. What were they? They were 0-9. My bad. Okay. So the Atlanta Falcons come, and in New York, Giants are the home team. Atlanta Falcons, expansion team, haven't won a game yet. They're 0-9. They come to in your home. The Giants are the home team. Atlanta Falcons wind up winning 27-16. So now the Atlanta Falcons are 1-9. The Giants are 1-8-1 after this. So the Atlanta Falcons' first ever regular season victory was against the New York Giants on Sunday, November 20th. 1966, they beat the New York Giants in Yankee Stadium 27-16. What a freaking absolute embarrassment. I mean, the last 1, 2, 3, 4, the 5 games in a row, absolute total embarrassment. They lost 55-14 to the Rams, and they lost to the expansion winless Falcons 27-16. Then the following week on Sunday, November 27th, in Washington, they lost 72-41. And it still stays bad. Then somehow the following week on Sunday, December 4th, in Cleveland, the Giants managed to score 40 points, and they lost. 49-40, they lost. It's kind of tough, actually, they scored back-to-back 40 points. Their offense scored back-to-back weeks, 40 or more points, back-to-back, and they lost them both. How do you do that? The following week, so after the Giants lost to the Cleveland Browns, they won 10-1, so they got 2 games left. Then on Sunday, December 11th, at home against the Pittsburgh Steelers, who they tied the first game of the season, they tied them 34-34. Pittsburgh Steelers come to Yankee Stadium, and they win 47-28. So that was the 3rd game in a row that the Giants gave up more than 40 points. 47-28. What would that be? 152, 160. The Giants gave up 168 points in 3 games, 3 consecutive games. 168 points. I mean, that's hard to do. That's 56 points a game. The average giving up 56 points a game for three games, straight games. 56 points a game. Then the final game of the season was like, I don't know, just a normal. I mean, the Dallas Cowboys, came to town, and they only won 17-7. Giants held them to 257 yards of offense, held them to 11 first downs. They must have their backups in there or something, I think, maybe, because they won the division by then and all that. So I don't know. So the final game was Sunday, December 18th at home against the Cowboys. They lost 17-7 to finish the season 1-12-1. Absolutely trash. And as I said, I have no idea how Ali Sherman, possibly the coach, made it through this season. Ali Sherman would coach for 2 more seasons. He would coach from 1967 and 1968, and then he would get fired in the preseason of 1969 when the Giants lost 37-14 in the preseason to the Jets. That was the tipping point. That's Wallington Mara, I think, had enough, and he fired him and brought Alex Webster as the coach. So now we have the NFL championship game, the 1966 NFL championship game. Wound up being a phenomenal game, back and forth. The Cowboys wind up winning 34-27. They had a goal line stand right at the end of the game. At a goal line stand, the Cowboys got down. I forgot what it was. It was like inside the 5. Not like the 2-3 yard line or so. They called a rollout play. Dandy Don Meredith got the ball, rolled out to his right, tried to throw the ball into the end zone. Well, he wound up getting, I mean, as he was rolling out, he wound up getting sacked. And in a desperation heave, he threw it in the end zone, because it was 4th down. It was 4th and goal. They were down 34-27. They had to score a touchdown to at least tie it up. So in a desperation heave, he threw it in the end zone and wound up getting intercepted. So the Packers wound up winning 34-27. But it was a very, very entertaining game, which wound up leading to the Super Bowl. And it was the Packers went up against the Chiefs. I mean, at halftime was 14-10, close game, relatively close. But then the Packers kind of blew it open in the second half. They scored 14 points in the third quarter. They scored 7 points in the final quarter. They wound up winning 35-14. But I mean, for the first half, it was a good game. I mean, this would this would not be the Chiefs' last rodeo either, because this was the first Super Bowl. The Packers won 35-10. Once this Super Bowl 1. Well, in Super Bowl 4, the Chiefs would return to the Super Bowl, and they would beat the Minnesota Vikings 23-7. So the Chiefs were in Super Bowls 1, They lost Super Bowl I to the Packers, but they did wind up beating in Super Bowl IV. They did wind up winning. They beat the Minnesota Vikings 23-7. So I mean, all in all, I mean, for the NFL, it was a fantastic season. Because they kind of got some new teams came in. The Dolphins came in the AFL. The Falcons came in the NFL. It had the championship game. They went up with the Super Bowl. They set the merger up for 1970. So it was a very, very exciting season. All in all, the Super Bowl wasn't called the Super Bowl then, but all in all, it was a very, very exciting season, 1966. And just sadly, the Giants were just not part of it. Now, the problem is that the Giants had the quarterbacks, Kennedy, Wood, and Earl Morrall. Morrall, he played 2 seasons with the Giants, 1965 and 66. And I don't think he was there in 1967. Let's see, I can figure that out. Let's see. But the Giants traded for Sir Francis Tarkington. So he turned things around big time. What do we got here? Oh, no, he was there. Yeah, look at that. He was there. Okay, he was 67. 68, he was not there because I know in 68, Earl Morrall was with the Baltimore Colts. So Earl Morrall was there. My bad. 1,000 apologies. So Earl Morrall backed up Sir Francis Tarkington. So the Giants traded for Sir Francis Tarkington in 1967, and Francis really started turning things around. The Giants' defense obviously got better. They still never had a very good defense at all, especially when Fran Tarkington was there. But Fran Tarkington did a very good job at putting points on the board. So that's what the Giants, because their defense was still very bad, And but that just kind of goes to show you what the Giants had to do to be successful. They had to trade for good players. They couldn't, they had holes pretty much everywhere, and they just had a hard time drafting good players. So what they had to do was they had to wind up trading away their draft picks to bring in good players. Now, for Fran Tarkington in 1967, which I'm going to go this also in detail in my next video, they had to trade away 2 first-round picks and 2 second-round picks for Fran Tarkington. So basically it was like a 4-for-1 to get Fran Tarkington. And was it worth it? Yeah, no. For the future Hall of Fame quarterback, absolutely. 2 firsts and 2 seconds. Yep. I mean, that's about what the going price is nowadays, right? If you're going to trade up in the draft, and if you're going up from like picks 15 or 20 to like number 1 or something, you're going to get that quarterback, a couple 1s, a couple 2s. Yeah, that's, The problem is they only had him for 5 years. He was there from 67 to 71. Then they traded him back to the Vikings. So they gave up 4 real top juicy picks. And they had him for 5 years. Once again, just, they traded away picks to get a guy, and they only had the guy for a short period of time, and then they got rid of him again. So, I mean, the Giants were just, they were just a mess. The coach was not very good. Their drafting was horrible. They were just stuck. They were just stuck. So once again, it'd be quite a while before they would get out of it. But that pretty much wraps up the 1966 season for the New York Giants. 1-12-1. Absolutely horrible. If you ask me, the absolute worst season in the history of the New York Football Giants, without question. I'll be back again with the 1967 season, which just happened to be the 43rd season in the history of the New York Giants. I'll see you then.